Gracias, María Ángeles y Steven. La labor que hacéis es impresionante desde la Open Value Foundation y desde la EBPA. La verdad es que cuando entras en este mundo te das cuenta de que este movimiento necesita de tres grandes cosas. La primera es que todos los agentes colaboremos mucho más y colaboremos de maneras muy creativas. Empresas, startups, inversores, el mundo público. Por ejemplo, mañana hablaremos de blended finance, que es cómo dentro de un fondo pueden colaborar inversores que asumen diferentes tipos de riesgos. O hablaremos de los social impact bonds o los outcome funds, que es cómo la administración puede contratar al mundo privado en base a resultados, que es una cosa también muy novedosa. En este cambio no falta ni sobra nadie. Si os fijáis en el programa hablamos y hemos dado voz a startups muy innovadoras, hemos dado voz a empresas muy pioneras, pero también vamos a dar voz a empresas más tradicionales, a bancos tradicionales, a fondos de inversión que en el pasado fueron sospechosos y que se están intentando reconvertir, a petroleras que están haciendo los deberes o intentando hacer los deberes y cambiar. Y lo vamos a hacer de una manera crítica y porque en este cambio no sobra nadie. Tenemos que conseguir que verdaderamente todo el mundo se alinee y conseguimos transformar la sociedad para el impacto, porque este es un cambio que va no de millones ni de billones, sino que va de trillones. Muchas veces Ronald Cohen habla de que para solucionar los grandes objetivos de desarrollo sostenible se necesitan 30 trillones en los próximos 10 años. Pues estos 30 trillones los tenemos que aportar entre todos de maneras muy creativas. Y ahí vamos a empezar, vamos a seguir. Para poner color a todo esto, Clara, ¿qué nos hace falta?
Así es, Xavi. Pues vamos a empezar a dar color a esta sesión y para ello voy a dar la bienvenida a nuestros tres siguientes participantes. So, as more and more economic agents join the movement towards the impact economy, the importance of measurement becomes paramount. Today we're going to talk a lot about how to measure impact and how to integrate this into accounting. That will be a bit later. But in this very special panel with three very special guests that are dear to me, we want to talk about measurement from a different perspective. Measurement not only to know whether we are doing things well or not and how we're doing, but also different kinds of measurement to help orient action, to help us innovate and understand what needs to be done to solve problems. So we're going to see different examples and different perspectives for that. And so we have with us three guest speakers, Kimberly, Ivan, and Joan. Are you there?
Yes, we're here.
How are you?
Hello,
Hi,
welcome
everyone.
to the three of you. It's a pleasure to welcome you at 7th Ship2B Impact Forum. Thanks so much for joining us. So, as I said, we want to talk about measurement also from a different perspective, from this empowering perspective where measurement can help us see which way we need to follow. And after that, right, after action, we will need to measure again to see whether we achieved the impact we wanted. So we want to speak a little bit about that with the three of you today, and you bring very different colors to the perspective. So let me start with you, Kimberly. Kimberly King is the CEO of Human Tech Lab, which is a global consulting firm which aligns people, planet, profit, and purpose to generate both economic and social value. This is exactly what we're talking about here at Impact Forum, right? Kimberly, I found a quote from you on your website that says, humanity plus technology equals impact. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and how can technology and better measurement help us move the needle? And maybe you can talk a bit about your work with corporates.
Thank you, Clara. And yes, and our quote is actually, humanity plus technology equals impact, add wisely. Because as we think about impact, I think it comes down to nature, Mother Nature and human nature. And while we can certainly work with nature and should, the one that we have the most influence over directly and the most responsibility for is our own nature. And every move we make has impact. We're only just beginning to talk about that and to understand that what we do and what we don't do moves the needle every day. So it's important that we actually know where the needle is, where's the markers, and choose the kind of world that we want to make. And as we look at how to meet the future, there's a quote that's also on our website that says, humanity will change more in the next 20 years than in all the previous 300 years. That's an enormous amount of change, and it comes from every direction, from environmental to demographic to geographic, social, political, the future of work, the future of life as we know it. And we have embraced technology because our goal is to make ourselves smarter. But without humanity, that's the one thing we can't automate. We may have a faster world and more accelerated capacity, but will we have a better world? Will we have a better society? Instead of looking at how do we measure for success of profitability alone, we now understand that all those metrics are the real picture of our success. Metrics tell us how we're doing, where we want to go. It's the superpower that can help us. It turns our data into meaning. It takes our planning into precision, and it takes our possibility to benchmark and go further on our own and together into a whole other stratosphere. If we look at this correctly, this is a game changer point of focus. And we need that more than ever, and we need that together.
Fantastic. So we actually need to maybe start moving from this anecdotal evidence of impact, right? Where I feel sometimes, maybe you'll agree with me, we've been conducting ourselves like blind, right, in the dark, and not really knowing, just maybe having the intuition of what impact actually means. But maybe we need to turn this into something more professional, right, and more intentionate, right? Thank you so much, Kimberly. Ivan, so Ivan Caballero is the founder of Citybits. I'm really glad that he's here because I've been following his path since many years ago when we started Ship2B, and he was starting with his previous initiative, and it's really a pleasure to see how this has evolved. So Citybits is a startup that uses big data and artificial intelligence to identify social problems among different communities and then empower its clients, which are usually development banks and development agencies, to provide more targeted and innovative solutions. So Ivan, can you tell us a bit more about how Citybits is working and how the power of measurement is helping your clients improve social problems?
Of course. Thank you, Clara, and the pleasure is mine. So yeah, Citybits is a social understanding platform. We are using natural language processing and machine learning to process big amounts of data, of text data, so we can help development banks, big organizations, multilateral organizations, and also national governments to have real-time data so they can react faster and more efficiently to people's needs. So far, we founded the company beginning 2018, and we have implemented around 50 projects worldwide, from Japan to Latin America, passing through Kenya. And some examples of the work that we've been doing is, for example, with Navarra, the government of Navarra, we have been helping them quantifying the hate speech against vulnerable communities. This means that we were able to help them identifying and geolocating narratives that were damaging and that were damaging society and somehow could generate violence. So they could build education workshops in order to reduce this problem. Another example is in Japan. We've been working with Entity Data, which is one of our biggest partners. Right, you know, Japan, a lot of natural disasters. So we were identifying and modeling the problems that appear after an earthquake. So we could create a preventive model for the next earthquake. And yeah, latest and biggest example is in collaboration with Inter-American Development Bank. Since the beginning of the COVID, we are collecting all the data from internet or from 26 countries. And we are structuring all this information in 13 categories that could provide like context about what are the principal, the main social issues, like for example, education, perception of the health system, perception to political decisions. And we're providing this data as an open data source. So any company, any startup, any government can use it in order to generate services to improve, to solve those issues and improve society in real time.
Fantastic, Ivan. Thank you for sharing that experience. I think it's amazing, no, how data really can be empowering to, in this case, government agencies, public agents, but also the private sector and startups and innovators in general to generate these new solutions, no? And so now we're going to see an example that I think shares a similar logic, but with a different perspective. So Ivan uses a private company, a startup here, to empower the public sector. And now Joan will bring us the contrary. So Joan, how are you? Nice to see you here.
Good, Clara, how are you?
Joan Martí is the director of cluster development at Acció, which is the Catalan agency for competitiveness here in Catalonia. And Joan, in your case, you have been helping SMEs to measure themselves, to take a selfie, I like this metaphor, of how they are doing in terms of social and environmental performance and governance using the B assessment, right? So that you can empower them to transform themselves and become more competitive. Can you tell us a bit about how that is working?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Clara. I think that Xavi really put the expectation bar of our work really high, asking for trillions. I think that at least I can speak about an impact in billions. So basically from Acció, we lead the Catalonia Clusters program. We're working with 29 different clusters in sectors like fashion, like packaging, or automotive. We have around 2,600 firms participating with a global turnover of around 74 billion euros. So I think that this is quite a big impact in our economy. Basically, this represents 30% of the Catalan GDP. For those that follow this seminar from abroad, the Catalan GDP is more or less the same as Israel or Finland. So 30% of that is really a huge impact. So in clusters, we have startups, we have multinationals, we have SMEs, also universities and tech centers. And I believe this is a great baseline to promote shared value because we have the main stakeholders in our innovation ecosystem. So our approach tries to create shared value in companies using the cluster approach. We believe in the shared value concept. As you may know, this was coined by Professor Porter and Kramer from Harvard Business School in 2011. And basically, I think that this is a great summary of this Congress, that economic impact and social and environmental impacts are two sides of the same coin. So we try to help companies understand that there is no trade-off between sustainability and profits. And basically our program relies in three main pillars. The first one, it tries to change the mindset of those companies, those pre-existing companies that didn't have sustainability at the core. So basically companies that are not following this presentation, because the ones that are following this presentation, you are convinced that sustainability must be at the center of businesses. So I'm working for the ones who are not here today. So basically trying to help them changing the mindset and incorporating sustainability at the core of strategy and at the core of the business model. How do we do that? We believe in the B Corp model. We believe that B Corp is one model that gives us three things. One thing is a certification scheme. Second thing is a community, a business community. And the third thing is a management tool. The most important part of B Corp, in our opinion, is not that you get the certification, is that you participate in this business community. So this is the second aspect in our program. And the third aspect is that we're providing budget. So we believe that public money is a game changer. So we are co-financing projects, business projects, in the clusters to generate share value. And I think that this is the third step needed. So one thing, systematization, following B Corp standards. Second thing, trying to change the mindset in companies in those sectors with sustainability not being at the core. Third thing, if we believe in something, we have to put money over the table, and we're doing so.
Fantastic, John. I love it. No, this exercise of taking a real 360 picture, in a way, of our social and environmental performance. Too often we have been measuring for reporting purposes, right? So if I look good on the environmental arm, but the maybe workers' right arm is a bit uglier, I'll just show the nice arm, right? And here you're forcing, in a way, the Catalan SMEs to take a real picture of themselves and put themselves in front of the mirror and say, okay, what do I not like so much, you know? And what can I improve? So that is fantastic. Kimberly, what are your reactions to these two examples?
Well, I'm excited across the board to see the innovations in the private sector and cross sector, of course. I work in public-private partnerships, so I get to be at every part of the table as we come together. Shared value is not just a buzzword. It's the truth about how economies work. It's the truth about how the world works. None of our businesses are really in it alone. We finally can understand that and leverage that for mutual value and rise together. That's the only way to do it. And this whole notion of either or, I frankly started my first company when I was 21, and it was solar. I'd love to tell you it was because I was an environmentalist, but that didn't come until later. I was a business person, and solar made sense to me, and it made money. And in fact, it changed my life to put me into business. I never experienced business either or. It has always gone together. When I'm working with nonprofits, I'm trying to teach them how to think with a mindset of a business in its accountability and its agency. When I'm working with businesses, I want them to find the soul of their purpose and turn it into the driving force that can bring it all together. The day of either or is over, coming to an end. And as I said in a previous conference with Ship to Be, one day we won't call it the impact economy. It's just the economy. That picture always had those other parts in it. Now we're daring to look at them. We're daring to fix them without a filter. Don't just make it look nice, make it great from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And this shared value will change our businesses, and it will change the world.
So let me ask you, all of you, one question. This is all very nice, this speech. I think we will all agree on the theory, but I'm sure there are a lot of people in our audience thinking, yeah, right, but you're not telling me the dark side of it, right? So what is the dark side? What are the difficulties in measuring? For example, Juan, what are the difficulties that companies find when you place them in front of this mirror? And maybe, Ivan, what are the biases that you might have when you're using these technologies to measure? And what are the risks of thinking you're measuring objectively, but maybe you're not? I don't know which of you wants to start. Maybe Ivan?
Thank you, Clara. Yes, in fact, what we are finding is that, just to put an example, 70% of the public data, the data in internet in Latin America is written by men. This means that if you don't normalize that data and you are collecting it and you are using it to take decisions, you are underrepresenting women. And this is a huge problem. So that's what we are trying to do at CityBits. We are developing some pieces of technology that allows us to position the or brand and our company as an ethical AI. Meaning that on one hand, we work to prevent the privacy of the user, another one to prevent the bias. So we identify the bias so we can normalize the models and provide, let's say, normalized insights. And then we also identify proper use cases that always are impacting positively in people's lives. So that would be, of course, there is a dark side in the AI big data, but I believe, like Kimberly said, putting purpose in the middle, in the core of the company, allows you to overcome it.
Fantastic. And Joan, where do you see the dark side or the difficult side?
When it comes to B Corp assessment, I mean, first of all, it's really demanding. That's why we like it. So I think that the more difficult that this type of assessment tools is, the more you demonstrate that you are sustainable. So if it was really easy, everybody could do it. So I think it must be difficult. So that's the first general comment I would like to share with you. Then I think that there are 4 main difficulties in applying the B assessment tool. The first one, I think, is related to the mindset. As I previously said, it's not about passing a certification, it's about having a long-term vision and a commitment with sustainability. So I think that this demands a great effort in companies that have been in the marketplace for a long time with not having sustainability at the core. So I think that the first difficulty is changing the mindset. Second thing, when it comes to the B Corp assessment tool, there are 2 parts. One is related to the business model. The second one is related to operations. The part related to the business model is really difficult. It's really demanding. Because again, if you didn't have your business model with sustainability at the center, and if you have to shift this, it's not easy. And the more track record that you have as a company, the more difficult it's going to be. So second difficulty, business model. Third thing, if you want to go through a B assessment tool, you need different teams in your organization working together and sharing information. And the difficulty is related with how well documented you have all the information needed to pass the test. So this is a time-consuming effort if you don't have well documented about the different aspects that are worked in the B assessment tool. And as you know, these 5 different areas: environment, community, customers, team, and also financial issues. The third thing, or the fourth thing, I would say it's budget. Talking even with big companies, you need an external expert to help you during the process, so then you need budget. So I would summarize it with these 4 things. One, it's the mindset. The second thing is business model. The third thing is coordinating your teams and documenting everything that it's needed. The fourth thing would be budget.
Thank you very much. So I think you all made excellent points. Some people I know in the chat are asking about B Corp, very interesting questions. Is B Corp enough? Are there other tools being measured or being used? We will be talking about some of these other tools later. And if any of you in the audience doesn't know B Corp or the B assessment, I encourage you to visit them at the expo in our platform. Very, very interesting initiative and very good way of making a selfie of yourself. So we are out of time. So Ivan, Kimberly, Joan, thank you so much for sharing your insights and for paving the way for all of us and being so bold about experimenting with these new measurement tools that are so needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara.